my name is Morgan Martin. I am 19 years old and currently I go to New York University and I'm studying marketing. I really liked business class like in high school, and I like talked to my teacher and he was like, oh, I really think like you would be perfect in business, but I knew that like I'm not really into like statistics or like accounting, but I really like making presentations and like trying to like help plan events and like market them. So I thought marketing would be perfect because it kind of like forms creativity and business into one. And he like kind of guided me because it was a lot of like, oh, we're not gonna ask Morgan any questions, she doesn't know anything, but like we would like do like games and activities and I would come first in all of them. So I was like doubting myself, but then like the teacher was like, no, we need more like women in business, especially women like you. So I went to Swiftly Academy and I had started going there in 6th grade in middle school. I knew in 5th grade because I had previously went to a predominantly black school, and it was like fairly easy, and I knew that I wanted a challenge. So I had a classmate at the time who was like, oh, I interviewed at Swiftly Academy, I think you would like it. So I had like my mom like ask for like an application, and I had to like go and shadow for a day. And it was just like, it was pretty cool. I had to shadow with a grade above me because my current grade, they like weren't there. And then like at the end of the day, I had to like do a interview with the head of the school and like tell them like, oh, what do I want to do in the future, why I would be like a good candidate to like start attending the school. I was really nervous and I didn't know like what they were gonna ask of me, so I kind of lied and said like I wanted to be a lawyer in the future because at the time I didn't really know, but I knew like they wanted to hear something that like sounded good, so I was like, oh, I really want to be a lawyer when I grow up, and I think the school would really help me. That's like what I went with. My transition from my old school to my new school was definitely hard at first because I was used to like having classes with like all black kids, and then like I kind of like was the only black kid starting in middle school, so it was definitely difficult. My previous school like wasn't like, everyone really wasn't like very wealthy, but the school that I started going to in middle school, they were all like very wealthy, and so was the area. Like we had like famous hockey players and like football players live in the area, so it definitely was a culture shock. Even like little things like technology, like everyone having an iPhone and me not having one, and then being like, oh, you can't be in the group chat because like you'll make like our messages green. So like little stuff like that was like, okay. When little things like that happened, it definitely like made me feel like sad and like, oh, I don't like feel part of the community. I like definitely put like a lot of pressure on my parents, which I really feel bad for now thinking back to it. Just like little things like, oh, I need an iPhone, oh, like I need a MacBook, because like I had like an HP and everyone like had a MacBook and it was like a big thing. So I definitely like put a lot of pressure on myself and my parents to try and like keep up with everyone. I definitely think I had to do a lot of things to fit in, just like I mentioned, like the little things like, oh, technology, and then like as well like stuff that I was wearing and like my hairstyles and stuff like that. So I didn't like want to be too seen, I just wanted to like fit in, but it's like you can't really when you're the only black kid at a predominantly white school. In terms of like hair, I like previously I was straightening my hair, but not to the extent I did once I started going to that school. Because like little things like, oh, we're going to like the river or like the creek, and it's like for everyone else, like, they don't care about getting their hair wet, but I did a lot. So it was like, oh, I just paid like $50 to get it straightened the week before, and now I'm like having to like do the school activity and get it wet, and like my mom would be upset. So like little things like that. And there would also be times where like people would be like, oh, we want to dye our hair with like Kool-Aid, and I was like, oh, I can't do that. Now that I'm in college, I definitely feel like I don't really care as much as like whatever people think of me. And I kind of started doing that like in 9th grade. I stopped caring what anyone thought and just like did whatever I wanted to, dressed how I wanted to, and I also like started wearing my natural hair more. I'd say my favorite memories from high school were definitely hanging out with my friends, and like also I was very involved in my school like leadership wise, so planning like different events and like helping like mentor younger black students. It was really like, I really enjoyed those. Well, I first started as the president of the African American Culture Club, and I didn't actually want to join the club. My parents forced me in 9th grade, and there was only like one other student in the club, so they were like, no, you need to join, you need to meet like more black people at this school. And at the time the president was a senior, he like wasn't really doing anything. So I like kind of took over as a freshman, which was a big task, but I really enjoyed it. And then there was another black student in my grade, and he kind of joined along with me, which was really nice. And then I also became like the president of our like student diversity leadership club. And like we planned like different events, like a diversity conference for a whole bunch of students around Western PA. And I also was class president, which I really enjoyed all of those opportunities to like kind of like enforce change in my school. There was definitely a lot of change that I felt like needed to be done at my school. Our one big thing was like our graduation dress code. Women were supposed to wear like white wedding dresses and like hold a bouquet of flowers as we like walked down like to the wedding like song. And like the guys were just supposed to like wear a suit and just like walk down. And it was very like divided in terms of like cultural wear and like different things like that. And if people weren't comfortable wearing a dress or if they wanted to wear a suit instead, it was very like rigid and set in stone. So I like changed that for my graduation year, though COVID, so we didn't have a proper graduation. It was like little things like that that they weren't willing to change because they're like, oh, tradition, we've been doing this for over like 100 years. But it was like, we need to like do something to like change this because like we're not the same as like the students that went to school in like the 1900s. I first talked to the head of the school and he was very hesitant and he was like, you need to talk to the board and like talk to students and like get their opinion. So we hosted like a debate kind of info session at our school where we had a ton of students like come during lunch and like voice their opinions. And there were a ton of students that were like, oh, my parents like wore the wedding gown, so I want to too. And then I also talked to the board, which was kind of nerve-wracking, but it was fine because I was like, we need to like create some change and like make sure that all students feel comfortable when graduating. And then it kind of was like put on the back burner. My senior year, I talked to the head of the school again, asking him if there was any progress, and he was just like, oh yeah, like I already talked to people and we're already sending out an email telling parents that they can like, these are the new guidelines for the dress code. And I was like really shocked because I've been working on like that project for 2 years and he just kind of took over and was like, oh, I'm getting all the credit. The head of the school, he definitely took credit for my idea, and I had problems with him previously, so I wasn't like too shocked that he would do something like that, but yeah, he did. Previously, I think it was junior year, my sister wanted to be in a play and they were having like a festival where students were the directors and like the cast and like stuff like that. It was fully student led. And her other friend who was also Black, they didn't get cast in any of the other shows. There was some like, oh, you have to do like a Western accent, and they couldn't do that. So they had begged me to be a director for one of the plays, and I was like, I guess I'll do it. I don't really want to, but you're my sister and you want to be in the show, so I'll do it for you. There was a lot of controversy because the person who wrote the play was supposed to be a student, but our director for all of our plays, he was like, oh, I have this dream to do one about Tagbo. I think she was a witch, but she also like had like involvement with like slavery and stuff like that. So it was very controversial. And it was also like a lot of faculty and the head of the school was upset because like he asked me to do it and they were like, oh, he's using you. And it was like, I know he is, but it's like I'm doing it for my sister. And the day before my show was supposed to like go on for like the community, the head of the senior school, he had pulled me in a meeting, was like, I want you to pull your show. And I'm not pulling my show. Like, cause I had like so many people involved that like every day, for months, they were like spending time, like hours with me, practicing and rehearsing. I was like, I'm not, if you wanna pull my show, that's fine, but you have to say it. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I made the decision to pull my show, cause I'm not going to. And so he was like very upset that I wasn't willing to like just do whatever he said. My show didn't get pulled because it wasn't that bad. It was just the fact that like the director had used me to do like his dream show. But that like was like the first like big issue we had because he got really upset that like I wasn't just gonna go ahead and do whatever he wanted. This really doesn't have any context to the situation, but he was like, oh, you know, I study African American studies, so know that I'm on your side. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave. I don't agree with that. Just because you study African American studies doesn't mean like you know what I'm going through. It was definitely nerve-wracking, but I feel like I was just trying to remember the goal and like kind of hope that like there would be a bigger outcome. In terms of the dress code, it didn't affect me too much, but I had like students in my grade that were like non-binary and they were really uncomfortable wearing a dress or a suit. So I was like, yeah, this doesn't really affect me, but it affects them. There were some students in my grade who didn't identify as a girl or boy. As well, you were allowed to wear cultural attire. And also there was another thing with like the gift, like boys specifically were supposed to get like a tie that had like our school symbol on it, and girls were supposed to get like this bracelet. And I had advocated that like we just fill out a form indicating which one we want, because like some people don't want ties, some people don't want a bracelet. So you can't really just be like, oh, if you're a boy, you get a tie. So we also changed that so students were able to pick what they wanted. In terms of the students' reaction, they were all very happy and excited, because a lot of people in my grade, they were really on my side. It was more the grade above mine that like were, oh, we want to stick with tradition. And it didn't get changed for their grade, but it got changed for mine for the grades below. There was another class president, so she also helped me. And we were like the two main people like trying to make that change. And then we also had a faculty member that like kind of she like run like the student council. So she also helped us a ton. And there was a head, like a president of the whole senior school. And he was very like, oh, I don't want to change this. Like it's not that important. So it was just really the three of us. I felt like I was being used by our like director of all of our musicals and plays, because he wanted to do like this like play about like that involved like slavery. I definitely think being a Black woman like was a big like driving force on why I wanted to create change, not only in terms of like the dress code, but showing like other Black students at my school that like they can do it too. In terms of like being a Black woman in power at my school, I think it definitely like there were definitely roadblocks at times, because I often felt like my voice wasn't being heard in comparison to like some of the other class presidents, because they were all white and I was like the only Black one. And then eventually my sister became class president, so we were in student council together, which was really nice. But I feel like there were definitely at times where I felt like my voice wasn't being heard. There were definitely a ton of like Black students in like middle school or elementary school that I would try and mentor, along with a few other Black students in our senior school. And he also like had another Black student like say that she wrote it with him, though she told me like she barely like helped him. It was like completely him. And they contacted me and they're like, oh, we really want you to do the show and like direct it. And I like previously I had done a few musicals, but like there were so many other students that he could have contacted. There was definitely some weirdness with the script, and there were also like little controversial things. Like there was supposed to be like a slave owner and his daughter, and they were like very controversial characters. So I tried to like manage that, because I had like some people in my cast that were like, oh, I don't feel comfortable like acting like I just hung myself on stage. I really don't know what his thought process was when writing that play. It was really all over the place. And another big issue was that he gave it to me like months later. So everyone else, like they already had their script because like other students wrote it, and he was like, oh, I'm still working on it. So I didn't get it until like a month or two before like our our final day of rehearsal. So it was very stressful because I was trying to like have practice, but I didn't have a script to go off of. So it was very difficult, and like faculty also like heard about that, but like he wasn't really like helping. So I think in total there were like 3 Black women in my grade, but there was also only like 2 Black teachers that like I ever really had experience from like middle school to high school. And one, like she wasn't technically a teacher, she was like our diversity woman to go to. So there was like a few Black women at my school, but there wasn't a ton. If I could change like anything about my school, I would definitely have more Black students, because they made it really hard for Black students to go to our school. One, tuition was really, really high, and there were scholarships and other things like that, but there was a lot of stigma if like you had a scholarship, and like if some parents found out that you had a scholarship, they'd be like, oh, she doesn't belong here because she has a scholarship, which I don't know what it had to do with them, but they were very rude to Black students who like they knew needed financial aid. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and it was like great in comparison to some of the public schools in our area. So I would definitely try and like do something to have more Black students go. There were a ton of things I loved about it, like teachers, as well as like all the opportunities I was given in terms of like traveling and like working with people outside of just like our little community. Because there was like a ton of like different opportunities that were given to me that I think like helped me in the long run, as well as like education wise in comparison to like some of the people I know that went to like the public school in the area that I lived in. It like our education was way like 10 times better, and I know it definitely helped me like get prepared for college. So I really enjoyed that. In the future, I'm looking forward to continue learning about business, as well as exploring the city and continuing to go to NYU as well. I'm looking forward to like in the summer working, and I'm going back to like in the area that my high school was, so like seeing my friends and like working with like some of the kids that I was mentoring in the past. So I'm really excited for that. If I could tell myself anything, I would definitely tell myself like, it gets better, you know, remain calm. Don't let people put you on the side, like make your voice heard. There's definitely more that I wish I could have done. But I know that my sister, she's currently like the president of a lot of the clubs I was in, along with a few other Black students. So I really have hope for the future of my high school. And I definitely think at graduation, I was like one of the only students to get like this big award, though our graduation was virtual, but like everyone still knew about it. So I felt like honored that like the school like kind of like showed me that they were proud of like all the achievements that I had made and like all the things that I tried to like do to improve it.
Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yay!